Now, in regards to risk, so what risks do you consider when you make decisions about your children? Because you've got, so in the birth chart, Mars talks about risks. Now, you've got Mars in your first house, which talks about your personality, how you come across when you first meet people. So Mars is all about, like, this to me says, Mars in your first house suggests to me that you are a risk taker. But the thing is that your Mars was traveling backwards at the time of your birth. So it's more internalized. The risk taking energy in your birth chart isn't expressing itself outwardly, it's expressing itself more so inwardly. This to me suggests you'd be a risk taker, but you're also very hesitant as well around risk taking. Does that make sense?
That is so I was only just talking about this with someone the other day because prior to having children, I was up for, as you said, up for anything because as my birth chart suggests, I'm up for an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
So before having children, I was skydiving. I was, going on all the rides at the theme parks, the scariest rides. I was going out late at night and some of the things I did in my early 20s, like walking home through the middle of London at 3 a.m. by myself. Like, that was crazy town. I hope my children never do that. But anyway, and I was just saying that ever since I had children, I went to a theme park the other day and I couldn't bring myself to go on even like a medium scary ride because
Yeah,
not
wow.
because I was scared of the ride, but because I was so worried that if something happened to me, then my children, how would I explain that to my children? It's more about my children need me, so I can't take risks now. So that
Yep.
would explain why I get that's why it's going backwards because I was a really big risk taker and motherhood has made me much less of a risk taker.
Yeah,
Um,
interesting.
and, I guess in terms of parenting, I always tell my children my number one job is to keep them safe. And my number two job is to provide them with a happy environment. So I guess when I'm making decisions about my children, they're the two things that I always consider. Like what is the potential for getting seriously hurt or into trouble versus what is the potential for enjoyment or personal growth?
How you've just said, your job as a mother is to keep your children safe. That's the moon in Cancer coming through. You are a mother that's all about keeping your children safe. Moon in the sign of Cancer is all about safety, keeping them safe. And you have restrained your risk-taking ability with that Mars traveling backwards when you were born. So Mars is retrograde when you were born. It's also in the sign of Libra, which is quite a weak placement for Mars. So it's restrained. So you've had to pull back and you instead have gone down the path of being that, that nurturing, safety keeping mother and making sacrifices to ensure that safety is in place, as opposed to, you know, walking through London at 3 a.m. or bungee jumping or whatever it is that you may have done in your younger years. You've learnt to restrain it because you have made safety the priority as a mother. That's the moon in Cancer. Moon in Cancer conjuncting the North Node. You've developed in that way. You were not that way initially. You became that way with growth over time.
That makes perfect sense to me. Yeah.